This afternoon, I'm running a keynote session at a networking event for hospitality people leaders. So, heads of HR, chief people officers focused on hospitality, so restaurants and activity centers and so on. And I thought it'd be useful just to record the session that I'm doing as a dry run for me, but also to share some of the topics that I'll be covering with these senior leaders. So as we go through this session, it's going to be about 30 minutes, and I've got three main objectives for you. The first is that I want you to come away from this with a real understanding of how AI is going to help you as a people leader, as an individual, in the decisions and strategies that you make. I want you to come away from this session with one specific ChatGPT use case that you can take into work right now and start using either for yourself or your team, so something practical. And more than that, beyond that, I want you to come away with this like really excited and inspired about how AI is going to change the way that your teams work, inspiring them to stay longer in the organization, to develop their careers, to be happier in their work. So, to set the scene, up until a couple of years ago, to do anything with AI, you needed a degree in data science. You needed a passion for machine learning. You needed to know how to code. But November 22 changed all of that because that's when ChatGPT was launched. And suddenly, all of us, without any development experience, have got access to this infinite knowledge machine through this chat box on the right. So that's fantastic. But the problem is that for most people, we don't understand what to put into that box on the right. So we end up starting to put in basic Google-like questions instead of using it as a collaborative thinking partner. And that's what I want to walk you through today. So why does this matter if we figure out what to put in that box on the right? Well, this is a study that came out just recently, a couple of months ago, via some work with Procter and Gamble. Now, if you're not familiar, P&G is one of the biggest consumer products companies. So if you had a shower this morning, then you probably used a Procter and Gamble product. What they did is they brought together about 770 of their colleagues, some from the US, some from Europe, and they got them to work on real world tasks. Now, some of those people, they got to work as individuals. Some of them, they got to work in groups. Some of them they gave AI to, which was ChatGPT, and some they did not. And the results of that work were pretty astounding. So just to explain what you can see on the screen here. So on the y-axis, you've got the quality of the solutions that these groups created. So as a reminder, they're working on real world tasks, and they got an independent group of their leaders to score the quality of these solutions. And it was blind scored. So this independent group could have no understanding of who actually had come up with the solution, whether they were in their teams, whether they were working as an individual, whether they had AI or not. They were just asked to look at the quality of the branding idea, the commercial idea, the technical solution that had come up. And so the dotted line is the benchmark of an individual without AI. So that is the standardized quality that came out. And the blue bar shows what happens if we get a team with no AI. Well, we know that two minds are better than one. So if we've got two or more people working on this problem, they're likely to come up with a better solution. But what really blew my mind was that if you give an individual ChatGPT, actually they're coming up with a higher standard of solution than even the team with no AI. And then if you give a team AI, you get a marginal more increase in that quality. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, okay, so we don't need teams anymore. We can let everyone go. We just give a few key people AI, and then suddenly we're golden. Well, that doesn't tell the entire story, because what they also did was to then take a look at the top 10% of the solutions by quality, and then look for each of those different groups, what percentage of the solutions they came up with made it into that top 10. So the individual with no AI, it was about 5% of their solutions made it into this top 10 for quality. The team with no AI, well, a bit higher, about 7%. The individual with AI, although they had lots of quality solutions, actually a lower percentage of those made it into the top 10. And as you can see here, the team with AI, right up in there at 15% of their overall solutions made it into the top 10%. So suddenly we can rehire everyone. We still need the teams. It's that combination of having these diverse perspectives, the critical human thinking, plus the AI is what drives these quality solutions. Now, why might that be? So this is a very interesting graphic. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing an individual with no AI, and we're looking at the background of those individuals. Now, we know that whenever we are working on something, either in our home life, trying to fix our car, or if we're at work, we use our own domain experience and our history to bring to that solution. And so what this shows is that with the dark blue, if you take people that have come from a commercial background, in the Procter and Gamble example, their solutions tended to be more commercial in nature. We're going to change the pricing, we're going to change the branding. But if you took someone from the R&D team that worked in the factories or the designing of these shampoo products, they were far more likely to come up with a technical solution. Now, when you, on the right-hand side, gave an individual AI, you can see that it doesn't matter what your background is, your solution coalesces around this optimal, in this example, a slightly more technical solution. So what does AI do? It removes the knowledge silos. It allows people to move faster and to fix gaps in their own knowledge. And that results in people being happier in their work. So what we can see here on the left is an increase in positive emotions from these teams. Again, the benchmark is the individual with no AI. And we can see that the team with AI is far happier in their work. They've got an increase in the positive emotions. And on the right-hand side, we've got the decrease in negative emotions with the individual with AI and team with AI leading the way there. Let's have a think. What is it that makes us feel negative at work? Well, it's the frustration that we don't know something, the frustration that we have to wait on someone else and they're currently unavailable or out of on holiday at the moment. Well, AI frees us from those shackles, and suddenly we're feeling happier because we can go faster. Couple of other charts from a different report. This one comes from the Norwegian School of Economics, and they did some studies into university students, so not directly into work, but we're looking here. The question is, are you aware of and do you use ChatGPT? And what we can see here is that the orange bars are men and the green bars are women. And in the use all of the time, men are way ahead. And in the heard of but don't use, women are way ahead, or used it a few times, women are way ahead. So men are using ChatGPT more than women. Now, why might that be? Well, as part of this study, they gave the respondents a fictional task from a fictional professor, and half of the participants were told, you are allowed to use ChatGPT in completing this task. And half were told, you're not allowed to use ChatGPT. Now, in the group that is allowed to use ChatGPT, you can see there's a marginal difference. Again, orange is for men, green is for women. The men used it slightly more, but no real difference. But in the group where ChatGPT was forbidden, firstly, a large proportion of both sexes used it, but the men used it way more than the women. So what can we learn about this from our own work scenarios? If you are not crystal clear in explaining to your colleagues when they can use ChatGPT and when they cannot, then you will find that you create a gender disparity where there doesn't need to be one, because men will use it more than women. Now let's move on to thinking about the evolving organization. Regardless of the industry that you're in, you could pretty much think of a company as looking like a pyramid with a CEO up at the top then you go down to some senior leaders, then go down to management, then go down to the individual contributors. And very much we are seeing that organizations are moving towards more of a pentagon. Now, this is more explicit in knowledge organizations like consulting, but even so, you're going to see a large proportion of the lower level administrative roles are going to be picked up by AI tools. And these AI tools are going to be used by AI capable, AI enabled, high performing individuals in the middle of the organization. Now, there is a lot of conversation going on at the moment about workforce displacement and job losses. And anyone that is telling you there is going to be no loss of jobs and this is great for everyone is not telling you the whole story. Jobs will be lost. Jobs will change. But my message to everyone that's in a people leadership position is this is about thinking about how can we help the people that we have today to become these AI-enabled, high-performing individuals. There is time over the next 18 months to help accelerate everyone's careers and give them such a fantastic opportunity to remain within our organization and help us to scale without having to add in more headcount. A graphic that I find really useful comes from a book called Co-Intelligence by a guy called Ethan Mollick, and definitely recommend it. It's one of the most accessible books for someone trying to understand how AI can get incorporated into your working life. And Ethan introduces the concept of the jagged frontier. And the premise is that AI is good at some stuff, like summarizing an email, and not so good at other stuff, like solving climate change, yet. And this is the point, that every time a new model is released, the jagged frontier moves forwards. And so things that were outside of the frontier and that AI was not capable of dealing with last week suddenly come within the frontier and are capable of solving it. And so it's really important as you're thinking through how you as a company can use AI tools, you actually want to have a list of 10 things that don't work today about optimizing your supply chain, about optimizing your logistics, about budget planning, about forecasting, about dealing with climate and footfall and all of these kinds of things. Because if you've got a list of 10 things that don't work today, then as a new release comes out, GPT-5, suddenly you can test those and you're already way ahead of your competition who are still trying to figure out how to use these tools. So we're going to dive into some sessions now where I'm going to show you some real life examples. And I want you to think about them in two contexts. So the first is your role as a leader is how do I equip myself with AI so that I'm more effective as a strategist, a coach, a leader? How can I be better in my role? And then the alternative dimension is how do I equip my team with AI so that they are more effective in the roles that they're doing? Thinking about Procter & Gamble, coming up with better solutions, being more productive, accelerating their careers, being happier in their role, and ultimately staying longer in our organization. A bit of housekeeping as I dive into these. The first is, why am I only going to talk about ChatGPT? Isn't there Gemini? Don't we roll out Copilot because we're a Microsoft company? This chart came out just a couple of weeks ago, and it shows the market share of mobile app usage of different models. And on the left here, you can see ChatGPT is just far and away ahead. When you speak to people, whether that is your children, whether it is people at work, whether it's your friends, for the vast majority of people, when they think AI, they think ChatGPT. And that is what they're using on their phones. So whilst you and your organization may say, oh no, we're a Microsoft company, we've locked everything else down, we're only using Copilot, the reality is that's not what people are using. And unless you take away everyone's phones, you're not going to stop them from using these tools. So I would encourage everyone to be thinking about how do we get ChatGPT team or enterprise rolled out safely and governed within our organization, because that's the tool people are going to use anyway. The second thing is I use a tool called Whisper Flow. It is a free download. It goes onto your laptop And you just press, in my case, my function key, and I talk, and it fills in what I'm saying into wherever my cursor is. I can speak a lot faster than I can type. And so I'm going to use that here. And it's something that I definitely recommend when you are speaking with these models. So let's get into some demos. So what is it that leaders do? Well, regardless of the industry that you're in and the role, the team that you're leading, you've got to set the strategic direction for that team. You've got to build and develop talent within that team. You've got to drive the execution and performance of that team. You've got to manage the resources. That could be money, that could be systems, that could be office space. And you've got to assess risk in that team. And then you've got to lead forward that culture and the change that is going on in your organization. So first off, let's look at setting the strategic direction for your organization. And one of the biggest unlocks for me in my own use of AI was, when I first started using it, I thought about it as this lowly minion, this person that could pick up the bits of work that I didn't want to do, or I didn't have the time to do, or I just got bored doing. Treat it like an intern, an assistant. Draft me this email, summarize these meeting notes, edit this document for me. The big unlock was for me to not think of it as someone beneath me, but to think of it as someone above me. No, actually, I'm the person that doesn't know anything. I've got this restricted domain knowledge. But actually, you, the infinite knowledge machine, understand all of these things. You've got such great experience in domains that I don't have. So can you teach me? Can you coach me? Can you guide me through this process? So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Playing to Win is a fantastic book. It's probably my favorite book on company strategy. And it's written by a guy called A.G. Lafley, who was the CEO of Procter & Gamble, and then his consulting sidekick, a guy called Roger Martin. And they break corporate strategy down into these 5 cascading questions. Firstly, what is our winning aspiration? What is it we're aiming for? Secondly, where will we play? What is the field that we're going to play on, whether that's geography, whether it's the part of the value chain, whether it's products or services? How are we going to win on that playing field? So what are the techniques and the skills we're going to use in order to dominate that market? What capabilities must be in place in order for us to win in terms of people or factories and so on? And then what management systems will we need in order to run this system? And so what I'm going to show you now is a GPT that I built within ChatGPT that helps guide me through that process. Because for so many of these books, you read it, you read it on the train, you read it at home, it goes back in the bookshelf and you go, oh, I really, really like that. And then you just carry on working the way you were before. And this GPT is going to show us how we can bring this to life. So I'm going to dive over now to this GPT coach. Where are we? Here we go. Playing to Win strategy. And here we've got this GPT. And I'm just going to say, for example, where should we play and where not? I might have a more detailed question that I want to write here. Great. This is the second pivotal question in Playing to Win. Where will we play and where not? It defines the boundaries, blah, blah, blah. So customer segments. So it's explaining to me a little bit about the Playing to Win, right? Geographies, the product or service lines, the channels, the verticals or industries. Let's shape your strategy. And so just as an example here, we are a casual dining network of restaurants based here in the UK. We've got about 15 sites and we're scaling fast. And we are starting to consider whether we leverage our brand and start thinking about launching a range of products that we sell either within our sites or online as well to leverage our brand. So can you help me think through this where to play decision and whether it's a good fit? I don't know if that's a good question or it's a bad question, but just thinking through, absolutely, this is a rich strategic moment for your business. So your core where to play choices. Core, we've got our casual dining network, an extension, this branded product line, and so on and so on. Now, I'm not going to go on through that process because I've just been making up the scenario. but you get an idea that now this thing is starting to coach me as a senior leader through thinking about this where to play choice. And if I take a couple of hours and I lock myself away in a quiet place where I can focus, I can now have a detailed coaching session with this GPT. Now, second example is about building and developing talent in our own teams. And so now we've done one of those GPTs for ourselves. Now let's have a think about our people. So this is another great book called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. And it also has got 7 questions. And he works on the basis that to be a great coach, you actually only need to ask 7 questions to the coachee. What's on your mind? And what else? What's the real issue for you? What do you want? How can I help? If you're doing this, what are you not doing? And what was most useful? Now, across a 1-hour coaching session, as you sort of guide yourself and the coachee through these questions, you haven't actually provided any advice, but you've given this framework for the individual to guide themselves to the solution, which is what great coaching is. So let me just dive across here, and we've done exactly the same thing with building this GPT, which is the quiet coach that follows that. And so let's say I am a assistant restaurant manager, and I'm wanting to talk to my own boss about getting a promotion. So I need help thinking through a decision. We're going to go through a short structured conversation together. It's based on a proven coaching approach. This isn't a quiz or a checklist. It's entirely led by what you bring. I'll guide the process with a few well-timed questions, and you can take it wherever you need to go. Let's begin. What's on your mind? My name's Henry, and I am an assistant manager at a restaurant in a chain of 15 in a casual dining network. And I've been doing this role for a year. I love my team and I love the site that I'm working at, but I really think that I want to take the next step in my career and start to manage one of our regions. But I don't know how to have this conversation with my boss because they seem to be very happy to have me just doing the role that I'm doing. So that's my challenge. And just a reminder, it's Whisper Flow that I'm using there to do the recording. So it sounds like you're energized by the idea of stepping into a regional leadership role, and there's some tension between your own aspirations. Let's start by staying with what's on your mind a little bit longer. What else? Well, it's not just that. Actually, I'm starting to think about whether I'm in the right role myself. And I'm just trying to think about what the medium to long-term career aspirations I've got and where I'm going. Okay. So we can see how this is going to progress through this coaching framework. Of course, if it was actually me and I was actually having a conversation, I'm going to provide a lot more detail as we go through. But you can start to see how your individuals can guide themselves through this coaching situation without actually having to address that with their manager and bring that to them a little bit later on. So now let's have a think about doing a one-to-one with your own direct reports. And here is another book that I'm going to introduce you to called Radical Candor, which you might be familiar with. It's great for people managers. And in this example, what I'm going to do is actually provide some very specific role playing and coaching for yourself as a manager of an individual called Jack. And so here I'm going to dive into a project in ChatGPT. So I'm going to talk a bit about GPTs a little bit later and why they're different. But a project is something that is just for you as a manager. Only you can see it and use it. And here I've created one for Jack, who's one of my employees. Now, in the instructions here, I'm an area manager for the Merchant Table Group, a four-venue independent restaurant group. You're to act as my executive coach and support me in my efforts to coach Jack. I'm following the Radical Candor framework. So there's just a bit of instruction here about how I want this project to work. I've then uploaded some files to this project. So I've uploaded details of the company's strategy and our OKRs. I've uploaded Jack's goals. Maybe we set them at the start of the year. His personality traits. Maybe we've done a DISC or sort of personality assessment. I've linked in our one-to-one notes that we have regularly, and then his job description. And so here I can start to ask questions, and it's all within the context of this. I'm Jack's manager, and I'm just preparing for our next one-to-one, in which we're going to start talking about his H2 objectives. I'd like you to have a think through, based on what you know about Jack and then also our company strategy, to help guide me through how I can set some stretch goals that would inspire and motivate Jack. Okay, based on everything we know about Jack, here we go. Strategic framing. What should stretch look like? Now, this is all very, very focused specifically on Jack's current role and on our objectives as a company. And so here you can see, and it's all specifically citing where this information has come from. So a really good way of you having a very specific conversation and then role-playing that with your individual direct report. So hopefully now you're starting to think about some ideas for ChatGPT. So ideas for you, like can you help me as a leader to be more strategic in my thinking, planning, hiring, and so on. Ideas for your team, help them to know what good looks like and how to be better in their role. And then ideas for other teams, or what if we could give finance or legal or HR access to these types of tools to be able to help our team. And so to wrap up, I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can build one of these things yourself. So firstly, I've mentioned GPT. What is a GPT? Well, we saw an example of one of those. It's a wrapper around a specific topic, and we can give it some conversation starters to help people get started. Behind the scenes, a GPT has got detailed instructions, which is going to explain what it needs to do. We provide it with these conversation starters to tell it, how to get things started. And then we can give it access to some knowledge, maybe some uploaded files about our strategy, our goals, and we can give it some tools. So I'm going to share a couple of things with you to use after this session. But you're going to go through 3 steps. The first is to uncover an AI use case for you or for your team. Having come up with some AI use cases, you're then going to pick one of those and you're then going to design a GPT for that. And then I'm going to show you how to build your GPT. So first off, AI use case discovery GPT. I'm going to give you a link to a pod straight after this, and that is going to give you access to these links. But you're going to go in there and you're going to say, help me uncover AI use cases. And it is going to give you a conversation, sort of coaching scenario, just like I've talked through, where you will be able to develop for your role, for your team, for you yourself, some specific AI use cases. It's going to take about 15 minutes, but it's going to come up with a prioritized list, and you're going to pick one of those. When you start to think about some of those ideas, I've talked about books quite a lot. I find that really useful. I've got a framework in that book. I've got a template, and I want to be able to GPT that. Think about the policies that your company runs. Is it a hiring policy? Is it values? Is it a IT use policy? Is it an expenses policy? What are the kinds of things that people have always got questions about that you wish that they could ask? Is there a process? Here is our hiring process. Here is our interview process. Here is our offboarding process. Here's our expenses process, whatever that might be. These are the kinds of things that are locked away in SharePoint somewhere. And you think, well, if only people could just ask, like, how does that work? And then the other thing I would think about would be document templates. Here is our job description template. Here is our interview guide template. Here is our a proposal template, or whatever it might be, a document. How can you help people to fill that in? These are all good AI use cases. Having done that, you should now have your few use cases, and we're now going to design a GPT. Now, a good place to start is to track the things that you do that you like, that looks good, and that you want other people to be able to follow. And also to track the things that are not so good, and don't do that. And so I recommend creating a Google Doc like this that you just keep alive, and you just fill in with what good looks like and what bad looks like. And through doing that, you'll then build up a tool that you can then start to provide to your GPT. So here might be an example for good and bad emails. Every time you get a good email, you're going to drop it in. Every time you get a bad email, you're going to drop it in or summarize it. Having done that, you can then go to your GPT Builder Coach, and you can say, help me create a GPT. So I'm just going to dive over to that right now. So here is our GPT Builder Coach. And I'm going to say, help me create a GPT. And this is going to guide you through that process of developing all of those aspects that are going to make a great GPT. So I'm going to guide you through a series of sections that make up the core prompt, things like the objective, initial response, and analysis. You're going to write each section at a time, and I'll check in after each one. And then I'm going to give you all of the bits and pieces that you need. So I'm going to say here, hi, I'm a people leader, and I want to provide a GPT for my direct reports that helps them to understand how to write a great, clear, concise email. I have been collecting some ideas of what makes a good email and what makes a bad email, and I'd like you to use that to help me to craft this. Okay, so I'm just going to upload the email template, good and bad emails, and I'm going to click go. Thanks for sharing your ideas. Based on your goal, let's start with the prompt writing. So this is the one-sentence description of what your GPT is meant to help the user to do. You're a writing coach, helps professionals write clearer, more effective emails by applying principles of concise, purposeful communication. You guide users to refine or draft emails that are structured, action-oriented, and appropriate. Okay, that's great. That's great. Let's crack on to the next section. Okay, here's the initial response. So this is how the chat is going to support that initial user with going through. I'm going to help you. You can paste in your email draft here, describe the content. Now, of course, you could customize this or change it by chatting, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to, great, please move on. In fact, as this is just an example video I'm recording, can you just build out the entire thing for me? Don't do that. Okay, so just for this example, it's built out the objective, the initial response, analysis. This is going to help coach the individual user through that. I've got a document template for how I want a great email to look, some examples, exceptions, user engagement. This is what the GPT Builder will provide for you. A name, a description, some conversation starters, and what you're then able to do is to use that to go and create your own GPT By clicking on this item here, then you're going to see my GPTs and you're going to create a GPT. And so with that, that brings us to the end of our session. And now in the actual room, I'll have some Q&A and some wrap up. But I hope that has been helpful to guide you as a leader through some specific examples of how you can use ChatGPT both as a leader for yourself, but also to inspire and coach your teams. I think there is a huge opportunity for the leaders that get this to completely transform what it means to be a leader in an AI future. And I hope this has inspired you.